video series on how to be an ARMS administrator. What we're going to be taking a look at through here are several of the basic abilities that an ARMS administrator needs to have to be able to function from day to day. Now, we will also be having another series about some more advanced administrator features, but think of this as more of a getting started from step one. You've been given the new task of being an ARMS administrator at your department. What do you need to know? So we're going to be taking a look at several key items through here, some default department setup features, some user access, code setup, crime code setup. We'll get to all that as we move through here. So let's go ahead and get started, and we will start out with system defaults. And here we are. So what we're going to be taking a look at first is how do we actually know if we're an administrator or not? How do we access the administrative features of ARMS? So from the main client, if I come up here to the top and I actually click on File, you'll see I have an access point here of Install Setup Code menu. Now if you come to this menu and you're grayed out there, if you're not able to click on Install Setup Code menu, then it's pretty simple. You're not an ARMS administrator. If I can click on this, it's going to pop a new setup menu to the top here. And now I am able to access any of the administrative features that I want to. So that's a big point here, and we'll come back to it in a second. But anybody that doesn't have access to this menu is not an ARMS administrator. And anybody that does have access to this menu, it's going to be very important because it doesn't matter what other access that person has, they'll be able to give themselves access to anything in the system. So big point of emphasis here. If you do see somebody with access to the setup menu that shouldn't have access, you need to take that away. If there's somebody that can access it that needs to, you need to give them that ability. We'll take a look at that in the user access section of how to set that up. But just know that this one menu here is your sort of gateway into the administrative world of ARMS. Now, once I'm in the setup menu, you'll see I have access to all of the different parts of my setup. I have things like crime codes, officer activity codes, location files, user access setup, location setup. All of these are just different major points of emphasis as far as what the administrator has access to do in the system. Now, what we're going to be looking at first is the thick client aspect of this, and then we'll switch gears and we'll take a look at how to access this from the web client as well. Now, the first thing we're going to take a look at here is going to be our system defaults. So in our system defaults, when I click on that, that's going to open up my system default screen. Now, the big thing I want to point out here first off is that my setup menu is now over here to the far left-hand side. This is just an easier way to get to everything rather than having to go up to setup menu every time I want to access some different part here. It's the same exact menu, one-to-one relationship here, and I can easily go back and forth to get to anything that I need to open up and manage in the system. Now, my system default information is where all of my kind of background gears turning type settings are for ARMS. You'll notice my first screen here, I see my department information. This is all of my standard department information. A lot of this is going to be useful as far as what do I want to print at the top of my case reports. So in my case here, my department's name is University of N2N, and that'll be what appears at the top. Now anywhere that I have a department type, it's going to say Department of Police and Campus Safety. Anywhere my chief's name appears, it's going to say Chief N2N. Anywhere my address appears, it's going to be 207 Rebel Drive, University, blah, blah, blah. We move on down from there. This is very much a set it and forget it type environment here. Once I have my information set here like I want it to be, then I don't have to really worry about this too much. The only reason I would need to change this is if for whatever reason my department name changed, or my chief changes, or my address, or any of this other information switches. Otherwise, I'm good to go and I don't have to worry about this. Now the main part of the screen is going to be everything to the right here. At the top, you'll see where I can affect my department badge. This is also what's going to print at the top of your case reports. You can very easily right-click here, delete whatever is there, and then you'll be able to come back in, right-click, and add a new photo if you wanted to put in a new one into the system there. Below there, I have tabs for all of the basic setup information for ARMS. A lot of these tabs are going to look the same, so we're going to do kind of a quick review of these. Many of these are very much, once again, kind of set it and forget it items. but I'm going to try to point out as we move through here any of the items that you may need to affect on a day-to-day basis. My first tab here is my case setup. My case setup gives me ability to see the current case number. My case is 20. And my next case number, which is logically 21. Now, if I come up here to modify, you'll notice I can't change the current case number. That's just here for a reference point. But below there, I can change my next case number. So right now, my next case number is 21. And let's say for whatever reason, I wanted to skip that. I can backspace that 1, put in a 2, and now the next time a dispatcher issues a case report, it'll be case report number 22. Now let's take the reverse of that. If I had 21 here, and let's say somebody issued case 21 on accident, and an administrator went in, removed the case report out. Different departments handle this differently. You may not delete your case reports. That's perfectly fine. But if I wanted to roll back my number, I could change this just like that to where my next number to be issued would be 20 instead of 21. Now, even though my current case number is 20, once I delete it, I'll have an opening at that case 20 mark. Now I could roll this number back, hit save, and then my next case report number in the system would automatically come out as 20, and the numbers would roll on from there automatically. Now below there, I have 2 checkboxes, one for not auto-assigned number. Basically what this is saying is whether or not you want your case numbers to automatically assign out whenever the dispatcher issues a case report. This is obviously going to be the standard setup for most people. You don't want to have your dispatchers manually assign case numbers as you move through, but if you ever have a departmental situation where you want to use that, that is a feature. Next to that, we have the print synopsis in narrative default. Now what this is talking about is at the beginning of a CAD event, the dispatcher may enter in public information. That public information, when it becomes a case report, will then become the report synopsis. The officer can then modify that report synopsis to their liking, and then this box basically decides whether or not you want that data to print as part of the narrative. Now, if I uncheck this box, that means that by default, any data that is in the report synopsis will not be in the narrative. That can still be changed on a case-by-case basis, but this is just saving you a few clicks on each case report. Now, if I check this box, it's just the opposite. Now, by default, whenever I print a case report, it will have that report synopsis in there. Once again, can be changed on a case-by-case basis. So if I had one that I didn't want to print in the synopsis with the narrative later on, the officer or whoever is printing that case report can uncheck that box to perform that function. Now below there, I do have my case number formatting. You'll notice I have the default down here of YY-X. That's basically just saying I want a 2-digit year followed by a 4-digit case number with a dash in between. Now you could change that. You could change that to be YY-X with no dash, or YY-X with a dash. So you can choose exactly how you want your departmental numbering to look. Most of our departments usually have kind of a standard like this one, but if you run, let's say, more than 9,999 case reports in a year, you wouldn't want a 4-digit number. You would want a 5-digit number. That way you could go up to 99,999. God help you. So what we could do is we can change that number on the fly here and basically decide what our numbering format for our department is going to be. Now, like I said a second ago, a lot of these screens are going to look the same. So for example, if I switch from case setup to my arrest tab up at the top here, you'll notice I have many of the same fields here. Whether or not I want to auto-assign a number, whether or not, or what my next number is that's going to be assigned versus the one that's just assigned right now. What's the format of my number? So a lot of these are going to be exactly the same, and they all function the same. So if I didn't want to auto-assign my booking numbers, I could check that box, and now the system will make the user fill in a number every time they put in a record. I uncheck that box, now the system's going to make the user assign a number automatically by pulling the next number out of the system each time we start a new arrest record in the system. So a lot of these are going to function the same. So what I'm going to look at now are some of the ones that are a little bit different. So for example here, CAD setup. With my CAD setup, I have a few new fields here. You'll notice my first one here is call priority sort. Right now, by default, it's set to high to low, which just means that whenever I'm looking at the CAD screen, my higher numbered priority, so let's say a priority 3 call, will appear ahead of a lower priority number like a priority 2. So if I had a priority 3, it would be at top, priority 2 would be right below there, priority 1 would be at the bottom. Now if your department uses priority 1 as the top priority, then you would want something set more like this, to where your call priority would be set low to high, meaning call priority 1 would be at the top of the list. Call priority 2 would appear below there, 3, 4, 5, and on it goes. So you can decide that from here. And like I said, all this does is change the ordering by default on the CAD screen of what the open calls show as. The next one I want to show you on the screen is going to be down here at the bottom, assign default received via. Mine right now is set to phone, which what this field does is just saves your dispatchers a few clicks. So if I have a dispatcher that's putting in a new call, the system's going to automatically assign all new calls a received via of phone. I could change that. I could switch this out, change it out to a radio. So now all of my new calls will be assigned the received via value of radio. Now this doesn't mean the dispatcher can't change it. The dispatcher can change each call individually. But in the instance that a majority of your calls are coming over the phone, what this does is on a majority of your calls, save your dispatchers about 1 to 2 clicks, depending on how they enter in their data. My next tab here is going to be my fonts. So as far as whenever you print out a case report, you can decide exactly what size font and what type font you want to show. Now, if you look at your case reports and you think the text needs to be bigger, maybe you left your reading glasses at home today, you can go ahead and up these numbers, and that way every case report that prints out will be of a larger font. Or maybe you don't like Arial. Maybe you want to change Arial to something else. Pick Comic Sans, that's always popular. So you can pick whatever fonts that you want and whatever font size you want when you are printing out your case reports. My next tab here is going to be my license information. For the most part, you don't need to touch this ever. The main reason the screen's here is so that you can see exactly what your system is coded for. If you come in here and actually modify some of the things in here, you could actually stop your system from functioning. So, suggestions, don't modify these values at all. These are mainly for support. But then below here, you can use this to see what you are coded for right now. The next tab I want to show you here is the Miscellaneous tab. So when I click on my Miscellaneous tab, I'm going to see a few new options here. One, I can pick what types of ARM sounds I want to pop out of the system here. And these are for things like alerts, safety alerts, officer person alerts, anything like that in the system. Below there, I can also set how and when I want my numbers to auto reset. We talked about our case numbers a second ago. And if our numbers are rolling up and up and up and up, eventually we're going to run out of room. So not only do we want to reset the numbers so that we have a very simple numbering process where January 1, case report number 2019-0001 gets issued, but it also helps prune back your numbers to where you don't just have a forever scaling case number in the system. So that's just the example for the first one here. And we also apply the same logic for CAD, arrest, and event tracker. So if you wanted your case numbers to reset yearly, but maybe you never wanted your arrest numbers to reset, you could change that value here, and now your arrest numbers will just constantly keep going up and up and up and up, and your case numbers will reset every Jan 1 as it rolls around. All right, so we've taken a look at the system default page here for the Thick client. Now what I'm going to do here is switch gears a little bit and take a look at it from the browser side. Now at this point I want to show you that everything that we're going to be doing in the Thick client, as far as an administrator is concerned, we can also do from the web client. So if you have web access to ARMS from your home, from the public internet, or even just from a VPN through your network, you can have access to change any of these administrative things from wherever you are. You don't have to be at your desk. You don't have to be on campus, depending on how you have your website set up. Now to get to the setup menu from here, it's very simple. If I come up here, click on the arrow next to my name, you'll see that I have the setup access from here. So when I select setup, that's going to open up my setup menu the same way it does in the Thick client. However, this one's a little bit different because now I have these buttons instead of a drop-down menu to pick from. And every single item that's here is also in that Thick client and vice versa. So there's nothing I can do on the Thick client that I can't do here. So for example, we were just talking about system defaults. So if I click on system defaults here, now I have all of my logistical information for my department name, the address, the contact information, chief's name, all that fun stuff is there. The case setup screen that we were just looking at is here as well. Looks very similar, right? So you can do anything here that we were just talking about a second ago. So if I need to roll back a number while I'm at home, I can come back here, take away that 1 and put in that 0. Hit save, and now the next case number, even though I'm not logged in at the department, will automatically issue out as case report number 20. Everything that we talked about, once again, was here. So CAD setup, the received via setup was here. So I could change my phone to radio from here as well. If I go over to my arrest screen, we talked about not auto-assigning our arrest numbers earlier. We can check that box or uncheck that box from here as well. Miscellaneous, setting up our auto reset number times for yearly. We can do that here too. So just driving that point home, everything we just discussed, we can access from here in the setup menu in the browser as well.